Hello everybody, this is Naz, and men lie, women lie, but stats don't lie. Welcome to our Kiev Major playoff round 1 recap. We're going to recap 2 exciting days of just amazing Dota. We had a number of series go on. Of course, the first round of our playoff brackets. This is a single elimination tournament, so it's win or go home from here on out for all of these teams. And already we've had 5 out of 8 series in the playoffs go the full 3 games. There were only 4 series that went the distance in all of the playoff phase at Boston. So extremely competitive. All these series really had some great storylines, and I'm going to take you through the numbers and the plays that I thought were huge in each one of them. We're going to start off with IG and Mouse. I don't do a lot of draft analysis on this stream. There's a lot of that out there, and I think some of the current and former pros do a very, very good job. But I think that this is particularly important both for this series and to evaluate IG's chances in the tournament going forward. So I could quote Sun Tzu here, but this is a gaming stream, so I like to think about drafting, especially early on, as you've got to have a certain number of mix-ups in your kit so that you can show aggression, you can put some pressure on the opponent, and try and gain information. All right, and here's what I mean. We've got a draft here where Maus have committed a lot. IG have committed to 3 cores very, very early on in their first 3 picks. Jug and Magnus, they're always running these 2 heroes in the same way. They're always going to have Burning on the safe lane Jug. They're always going to have XXS on the off lane Magnus. Lina used to be a little bit of a mix-up for them, but now I believe in their last 30 matches, they've picked Lina in the last month or so, and I believe OP's played it 27 times. Boboka's only played it 3 times, and none in the last couple of weeks leading up to the event where they played a lot of H-Cup matches. So it isn't really as big a mix-up for them. So this is... Miles has to know that these are the 3 cores, and at the same time, you've got a Ricky, you've got a Baden, which can be a mix-up. Remember, Miles hasn't played too many matches. We don't have too much data on them. There's not going to be too much scouting information that IG has on the other side. We're going to pick the Templar Assassin in the second phase as a counter pick to the Lina. Remember, the team that's got the last pick does have to show their second phase heroes first. You're going to commit to the Ogre Magi with your 4th pick. That's almost certainly going to be Q's hero. If there's a weakness that IG have, Boboka has been a tremendously high impact player for them, both at DAC and so far in this event, but he's got a pretty limited hero pool. And if you notice, Maus at the very beginning of the draft, they ban out the 2 really high impact Boboka heroes, and they picked the 3rd in the Ricky. So really, there's only one other hero that Boboka has played more than 3 matches on in the last 3 months, and that's the Treant Protector, and that is the direction that IG end up going with their 5th pick. So right about by the time they pick the Lina, Mouse Sports pretty much know what IG's last picks are going to be. They have a very strong feeling that they're going to pick up that Treant Protector for Boboka or another hero that they're going to try to utilize similar to the Ricky. And, you know, Q's heroes, not to denigrate Q's play, but he's more of a captain for IG in the last few months anyway. So again, they're giving away a lot of information to the opposition. Maus really don't feel pressure at any point in this draft. The lanes for IG are fairly obvious. You know where not only do you know that all 3 of these are cores, but you know exactly where it's going to be. And Invictus Gaming really lost all 3 lanes in this game. Maus just punished them from start to finish. They had a ton of information, knew where IG were going to be on the map, as well as the starting lane configurations. This is really the blueprint for, I think, a lot of teams possibly beating IG as the tournament goes on. We mentioned in our previous videos that IG had only picked or banned 29 different heroes in the group phase. That's the fewest of any team in the tournament. And this IG is executing as well or probably better than any other team in professional Dota 2 right now. If you don't gain some kind of drafting advantage against them, they're probably going to beat you. But this is the kind of game. Maus did not play a clean series, and they still were able to win this game. I believe they had a huge advantage coming out of the draft. Now, again, if you go to the Game 3 draft, it's almost a mirror image. This time, IG doesn't have very many mix-ups, but they actually open with 2 of them. Vengeful Spirit is the only mix-up that they use frequently. They'll play this hero as a one position, of course, with burning, as it ended up being in this game. They'll also move this support to a 5 position. They'll play Q on him. The Omni Knight is not something that they've shown a whole lot of. It's gained a lot of popularity in DPL over the last couple of weeks. They've shown only 6 games on it. I believe XXS has played 5 of those. Q has played 1 of them. So this hero can be both an offlaner and a support. Again, you know, Mouse is the one now giving away a lot more information. Abaddon's overwhelmingly been an offlaner in this tournament, can shift over that support role. Bounty, you know, is going to be that dedicated support. You know about where he's going to be in the map. He's going to have to be harassing the mid lane early on to be effective. So it's IG that has quite a bit more information going into that second phase. And even now, right, through the first 4 picks, Miles really has no idea what IG's lanes are going to be, and they're not even sure who's going to be a core or who's going to be a support. With these 4 picks, you're fairly certain that this is going to be a core Venge, but you can't even be completely confident in that because of the possibility of them mixing it up and maybe even putting a Sand King mid. So I like this draft a lot better. The Lina matchup for Mouse, this Thug is a very, very good Lina player, but once you've committed to these first 3 picks, this is your 3 through 5. It's almost the same thing, the same error that IG committed with their cores in the previous draft. This is your 3 through 5. You know it's going to be a Thug Lina. He's a Lina spammer, very good Lina player, but you have to pick a moderate hero at the 5th position, and you're really kind of limited in your options. I actually still like PL. I still like having the Diffusal Carrier against what you now know is going to be a core Omni Knight, even with the change to Repel, where Diffusal Carriers aren't strictly necessary against the Omni. With a core Omni, you're not going to necessarily be building a lot of mana early on. I still like to have the early Diffusal Carrier against that hero, but again, IG are just going to come right back with the OP Medusa, and really this game was never terribly competitive. This is the kind of thing I think when IG is able to get any kind of an advantage like this through the draft, I don't think that there's a team in the tournament right now that's going to beat them. If IG loses in this tournament, I think it's going to be because they're very susceptible still to getting boxed in like this. So I was encouraged by Mouse being able to take a game in this series. They've been a little bit uneven here in this tournament with their form, but I do think based on what we saw with them winning game 2, they've got a shot to get back to some of that Boston Major form. They're probably going to have to come through the qualifiers to TI, but I do think that that team can take some positives out of the series. IG, of course, looking very, very strong moving into tomorrow's games. So Newbie and Liquid, this was really a nail biter, and it just looked for quite some time. Liquid, we've talked in the previous video, they've had their late game issues coming in, and especially during this tournament, looked extremely shaky in the group phase. Had at least one match where I felt like they looked like they were scared of going to the late game and really pressed in the mid game, made some costly mistakes. It looked like Liquid was just going to get blown out of the series. Newbie took game 1 very, very easily. They were on the front foot. They led 16-2 in kills in the middle of game 2. It looked like Liquid's tournament run was about to end in the bottom 8, and then a miracle happened. We all know 9K MMR. He was the first player in the world to get there. Critical Roche fight at the 20-minute mark. Miracle bought back on his TA. They're down 16-2 in kills at that point. He goes 17-0-5 over the final 23 minutes to tie the series 1-1. I cannot overstate just how critical a performance this is. Look at Newbie's lineup in this game. They have at least 4 heroes that are arguably all 5 heroes that are capable of scaling extraordinarily well into the late game. If you let Newbie get to that 45-minute mark with this lineup and they're all farmed, they're done. They also have plenty of power to high ground push and to end the game at 30 to 35 minutes. Liquid cannot afford to be at a large deficit at the 25-minute mark in this game, which is where they were headed before Miracle made that play. It's worth noting Mind Control had an excellent series as well. Started a little bit shaky, ends up in on 26 out of 29 Liquid team kills as Doom. And I love the target prioritization. When you look at these 5 heroes, you almost are tempted to say, well, you're going to be dooming the Ember, you're going to be dooming the Jug. It was actually the Kaka Sand King that Mind Control doomed 4 times, twice as much as any other hero I think if you look at how the fights go in the replay, that was the perfect target selection. He was really their only big source of sustained AoE control. Warlock, of course, does have that rock, but once he blows the rock, Newbie doesn't really have any AoE control coming out. The Kaka Sand King has been huge for them in so many games before. They were able to take him out of the equation very early on in the fights and just isolate the remaining 4 Newbie heroes. Great execution. It wasn't all Miracle, even though he certainly carried. And it was really Kuro. If Kuro doesn't hit 9 Newbie heroes with 2 weaves, one of them was actually at about 1930, actually before Miracle died and bought back. But he hit 9 Newbie heroes with 2 Dazzle weaves in this pivotal fight. If he doesn't hit that, they're not low enough for Miracle to be able to come back into the fight and finish off all those Newbie heroes. So that was just a huge play as well. Once again, Liquid supporting cast playing extraordinarily well around their star 9K player. Game 3, this to me was just an awesome display of both tactical and strategic Dota. The game was completely defined by GH on Winter Wyvern, arguably the top player on that hero in the world right now. He hit back-to-back 4 and 3 heroes Winter's Curses to secure huge Liquid team fights, absolutely shut down the Newbie smoke ganks. I mean, this was really, it just looked like in this series that Liquid flipped a switch and all of a sudden they were back to their form of last year. One of the big things that Liquid was doing when they were playing so well at last year's major cycle, they were consistently winning the Vision game. The biggest plays of the biggest single play of last year's Manila Major was actually Matumbum and Slark providing vision for this gigantic 4-man mind control ravage in the Radiant jungle. That it was an amazing play, and you can really see what a different, it's a different team Liquid is. You can say this about a lot of pro teams, but Liquid especially, they're a different team when they're consistently winning that Vision game. They were winning it in this game. They absolutely crushed Newbie smokes. But the neatest thing that I thought about this game, after those 2 huge Winter's Curses absolutely ruined Newbie in this game, Newbie was able to take back-to-back huge team fights. They put themselves, they were coming back into this game, had the lead down to about 6K net worth, going to about the 40-minute mark in this game. By shutting down GH's Winter Wyvern, they actually picked him off twice at the front of the team fights with Curse still up and completely dominated the team fights from there. And so I thought this was a great advantage here to Newbie. There was a great adjustment, rather. Sorry about this. It's late, guys, by Liquid. They execute a great bait here. They send GH's Winter Wyvern to the mid lane. There are actually 3 Newbie heroes in here. Silencer is in here as well. You can see Kaka is split off from the fight. Liquid had actually smoked into this. They smoked down past the Radiant Ancient camps. You can see there are 2 Liquid heroes here standing on the high ground, including Tusk, ready to snowball the Matumbum and Lycan into the fight. They're actually able to split off and pick off Kaka before the fight even really gets going. Newbie here does get the kill on the Winter Wyvern as SCCZ's Ember Spirit remnants in, but they're dead meat from there. This is a 4v5 for Liquid, but all of their heroes are in absolutely perfect condition. They're going to split off Kaka from the main fight, and they're just going to take apart Newbie's entire team. And you can see they just never looked back from there. It was a clean 7-0 kill sweep for Liquid the rest of the way, and they were able to come back in this series. Just an amazing display of fortitude by Liquid, and you gotta wonder if that old Liquid team is going to be back in the next series that they play. So Vici Gaming J against DC. This was I felt bad about miscalling this series. I got on the DC hype train, and it really looked like in game 1, DC was following the same kind of mold that enabled them to be successful in the group phase. We talked about how DC was becoming almost exclusively a late game team. They have Abed and Mason, who are both farming really well. They looked like they were playing a lot of these games just to draw it out, get to that late game, and win by farming superiority. This game looked no different. This game was dead even at 42 minutes. DC's got 4 of 5. If you look at their lineup again, they've got 4 of 5. All of their heroes but Monkey King scale extremely well into the late game. They're totally fine with playing this game out to 50 minutes and beyond. Problem is, VGJ have other ideas, and they're just flat out going to out-execute DC in a couple of critical late game engagements. Fenrir here once at the base of the dire mid steps, and then again in the radiant mid lane, executes 2 4-man overgrowths back-to-back on his Treant Protector. They actually got wiped. VG Gaming got wiped after taking the dire mid racks. They gave up 5 hero kills. Really looked like, despite this big play, they were going to be on the back foot. It didn't matter. DC were coming down mid. They were a little bit too hesitant, and they just absolutely got caught out. The thing that you don't see in the first picture, you can see a little bit in the second, is that Fenrir hit these overgrowths with his team in perfect position behind him. You can see Freeze and Aggressive, the 1-2 cores here, ready to do some damage behind this overgrowth. You can see the Sunray already coming in, being cast by the Phoenix. They've just got him dead to rights here, and the game just completely blew up in DC's face, and you have to wonder if that affected them mentally going into game 2, because game 2 really, for all intents and purposes, was never a match. Early on, Abed really struggled in this laning matchup. 24-16 on Freeze's Lina at the 4-minute mark. That was actually in the top 6 totals for the tournament so far. Abed's 5-2 on Invoker in the mid lane at the 4-minute mark is the smallest. That's the fewest CS, smallest CS total at the 4-minute mark so far in the tournament. So you got off to a really rough start in lane. DC didn't really rotate that much over to protect him. I wanted to show there was one good play that Abed made. He had a 3-hero tornado, had a really nice escape here on a play where it looked like in the bottom lane that VG Gaming had him dead to rights, but it just wasn't enough. And guys, I said in my scouting of this series that I thought Bulba and Demon really needed to play well. Unfortunately, I like Sam. I'm actually friends with Sam. I like Jimmy quite a bit, have incredible respect for what they've accomplished as players. And I really pleased. I was a little bit disgusted by some of the Reddit threads. Guys, you know, finish top 8 at TI and then you can flame that hard. But still, it's got to be said, they had a terrible game. They finished 0-13-8 combined in this game. There was 1 hero hit with 2 reverse polarity casts in the entire 40-minute game. There were 15 uses of Vendetta, and those 15 uses of Vendetta hit a total of Monkey King 3 times. That's not the kind of impact that you expect from these 2 veteran players on those 2 heroes that we know they're very good with. I do want to end on a little bit of a positive note, because this series almost certainly left a very bitter taste in DC's mouth. I think this team still has a lot of room for improvement. I still think they are a legitimate threat for top 8 at the International this year. Obviously, you have some things to work on, but just to end on a positive note, what impressed me here, FY is actually now in the top 10 total wins in Pro Dota 2 all time, moves into that 10th position there behind Loda. This is very impressive for a Chinese player. Until after TI3, the Chinese teams played way fewer official matches than the Western players. So this is a very big milestone for him, and obviously a player that's still young and already had an incredible career. This team does have a chance to make some noise going onward. Virtus Pro versus IGV. This is probably the most straightforward of the series that we saw out of all of them. IGV, just unfortunately a very frustrating team. They've got 5 pretty talented players. Paparazzi, I mean, he won the 1v1 mid competition at DAC. These are individually very talented players. They are really struggling to find cohesion, especially in their drafts. They go ahead, this is DotaBuff's view, so the game 1 draft is on the bottom here. They go ahead and they open Omni Crystal Maiden in the first game. Virtus Pro shows that they're very confident in the Ursa in the counter to the Omni Knight. Both the fact that they literally insta-picked this in the draft, and Ursa just absolutely tore apart the Omni Knight in lane. They left him solo for long stretches of time against the Omni Knight. The Omni wasn't able to get anything done. They were never really threatened. And I mean, VP just were in control from start to finish. There were 4 VP players in on 16, 17, and 2 in on 19. of the 22 total team kills. This is where Virtus.pro is at their most dangerous. You are not going to beat them when they have this kind of team fight participation. It's probably the key statistic for them as a team because of their play style. And so, yeah, I mean, as IG Vitality, you just have to go back to the drawing board after that game. Unfortunately, in game 2, they do the exact same thing. They open up with Omni Knight and Ricky, and VP says, okay, we're just going to do exactly what you did last. We're going to do exactly what we did last time, and we're going to take away the only hero that was really successful for you, which was the Crystal Maiden. Something definition of insanity. This is the kind of thing that we've seen out of IGV. I mean, people forget it wasn't that long ago, something like maybe 6-8 months back, that IGV looked like they were going to be the next up-and-coming team out of China. This was a team that showed a ton of promise, was really almost dominating in some of the in-house leagues. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's practice habits, coaching, whatever, the wheels have just come off for this team, and they've really struggled with their cohesion. Incredibly talented squad, but they have way too many facepalm drafts, and no one's TA. I actually felt bad that we missed this at Boston. He had a 960 GPM game on TA. That's actually the highest total in competitive Dota 2 since TI5. He had an 816 GPM game in game 2 on TA to put away IG Vitality. That gives him 2 of the top 5 TA games ever at a Valve event. Very, very well played by him. He's obviously a hugely explosive player, but again, IG Vitality looking outclassed in this series. Moving on to the second day, breaks my heart here. We had the 2 SEA teams, great representatives of that region, facing off in the first round. Unfortunately, this is how the group stage fought, and you got to take them as they come. Game 1 and game 2, really the story was the mids, okay? Faceless 5th picked the Storm Spirit for jabs, and they just absolutely ruined Cuckoo's life on his mid TA. They killed him, 4 times in the first 5 minutes with mid ganks. Cuckoo finished 3, 9, and 3 overall. All 4 kills involved the Storm Spirit and the Ogre Magi. So XY on that Ogre, taking a page out of Tim's book, coming and just flat out bullying the mid lane. Faceless was in control of this game from start to finish. Game 2, almost exactly the opposite. TNC last picked the Cuckoo Wind Ranger mid. The game is actually dead even. Blow for blow, only a 335 net worth advantage at the 35-minute mark, and then this happens. Cuckoo on his Wind Ranger picks up the double damage rune just seconds before this fight begins, and she's just in perfect position. She's got that focus fire with the DD, getting off the Maelstrom procs on 3 and 4 Faceless heroes throughout the fight. Faceless looked to be in pretty good position. It looked like Jabs' Tiny, despite struggling early on in the mid lane, was going to be able to just bully out the Raven Slark. It was not to be. Cuckoo completely turned this fight. You can see in the fight recap, almost twice the damage in that fight Cuckoo does than the next closest TNC hero. He gets the triple kill, pursuing Faceless all the way up into the dire jungle, and the game was just pretty much won from there. TNC went on to even the series. Game 3, man, oh man, this was an absolute classic. In a marked departure from the first 2 games, where it was really the 5th pick mids that defined the drafts, TNC actually 2nd picked Cuckoo's OD. Now, the panel really questioned this pick. They were pretty surprised. This is a serious comfort pick for TNC. They came in 9-1 with this hero. The only loss that they had with this roster on that hero was actually to Faceless in the Kiev SEA regional qualifiers. Most of the other games that they had shown the Cuckoo OD were absolute slaughters. He's completely dominant in that hero. They picked up the Sam H Omni 4th, which they had actually used to beat Faceless in the qualifiers, and they last picked the Raven Troll Warlord. At that time, with 9 out of 10 heroes showing, all 5 picks from TNC and 4 from Faceless, I think there were a lot of people, including myself, that just thought that this might be a draft win for TNC. Well, Medusa is one of those heroes that you really can forget about it. Faceless, I really felt saved their draft with a last pick Javs Medusa. The game does go out almost even to the 40-minute mark, just a 3.4K net worth advantage to TNC when this fight starts in the Roche Pit. Once again, a DD rune actually plays a huge role in this engagement. Jabs comes in with a DD rune active on his Medusa. Nuts gets himself in really good position here for the freezing field with Crystal Maiden. That does a couple of things. It forces the cores, it forces the Cuckoo OD to force staff out of the Roche Pit, and it makes Raven activate his BKB a little bit early on when he's not really in position to do damage. Meanwhile, Ice has actually come down and opened up on the Rior Vengeful Spirit and the Same H Omni Knight. They managed to split off the Tim's Ogre from the fight. He actually died down here near the Radiant Ancient Steps and immediately had to buy back. Wasn't in it for most of the fight. And Faceless, just through the superior positioning, they were able to space out the TNC heroes, isolate Raven inside the Roche Pit. They did have a swap here that they used to get Raven out of trouble, but the Troll was never really, the Troll and the OD were never really able to get back in position to apply their right clicks in this fight, and that led to Faceless running down mid and Black absolutely styling on his Slark. He amassed 84 Essence Shift stacks. We don't yet have the tracked stats for total Bloodstone charges, total Essence Shift stacks. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that is probably a record for a pro match. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of that, so that amount, 84 Essence Shift stacks, that gives you 365 agility. That's raw. That is over 1,200 raw right-click damage from your base stats alone. So Black absolutely styling at the end of that game, and Faceless able to put it away. Absolutely a shame that TNC had to go out like this. One of the big cruelties of the single elimination major, but man, they put on one hell of a show. Good for them, and I hope to see them back at TI. All right, OG and Team Random. This, again, coming into this tournament, a lot of us would have handicapped this series as being fairly lopsided. But remember, this is a rematch from the group stage, and Team Random did take a game off them. Well, the same thing happened here. Game one was pretty much the S4 show. OG was looking a little bit shaky early on. S4 came in with a huge three-man black hole in the mid lane. It was the first time he cast that spell to give them a little bit of an early advantage. They're sitting here at about 43 minutes in. Game's fairly even. S4 had just purchased a refresher orb about a minute before this fight. He's able to use the double black hole to win the fight convincingly for OG. It looked like Team Random probably didn't know that they had it. I think he actually faked this really convincingly. He activated his BKB super early. He was in a vulnerable position here in the low ground on the river, walking with his BKB active. He held on to it, held on to that first black hole. He only caught the two cores in the first black hole, got a lot of the channel off, but really didn't do any damage. All of a sudden, Team Random think the black hole's down. They commit to the fight. S4 turns around and says, play it again, Sam. He's got another black hole active, and he's able to lock him down. He actually did over 5k damage by himself as Enigma in this fight with Midnight Pulse and the two black holes to carry OG on to victory. Game two, though, man, if game one was back and forth and a little bit of a nail biter, game two was very lopsided. Team Random open Venge Bat, a hero that's not gotten a lot of love in this tournament. A lot of teams have really gone away from it, but man, oh man, they look convincing. Faith Beyond had 9 kills on 11 lassos. Ice was very solid on the Winter Wyvern. The Fly Dazzle, which has been a signature pick for OG, was really neutralized. They were able to use the Bat Rider to get into the back lines of OG, lock down that Dazzle to the point where he's out of the fight for the first 20 or 30 seconds. Kills happen before he even gets a chance to grave anybody. Even if he gets a grave off later in that fight, it's not going to have the same effect. OG, they last picked an Arc Warden in that game. This hero it's obviously something they've practiced, they feel good about, they want to try it, but they are 0-4 with it in this tournament. kind of like to see them go away from that in the future series. I don't fully understand the advantage that they think to be getting in that matchup. And game 3, boy, with OG facing elimination, we talk a lot about No Tail, and we talk a lot about his style as a carry. He's not a hard farming carry in general. He'll play as Naga, and he's actually a relatively light farming Naga. He has much higher team fight participation, doesn't necessarily hard farm, Radiance push all 3 lanes, and just suck the entire map dry of resources. But in this game, No Tail got his farm on in a big way. He had Radiance, Armlet, bots, and Manta up slightly before the 20-minute mark. And this, to me, is the mark of a good team when they've got their big core off to a huge lead. He's farming really well, but he's going to be ready to fight. He's not just going to sit there. They're going to try to consolidate that advantage, and they take two key fights. He gets 5 kills on 4 different heroes in the next 2 minutes after this shot was taken. OG really never looked back from there. He was just way, way too big. And a lineup from Team Random. This was, by the way, the Animage, the Freon picks in this game gives them 45 different heroes picked in the tournament. Sorry, guys. I had a different team. A lot of you told me that Team Random was going to be the answer to that compendium category. That is my bad. They are most likely by far going to finish first in that category, especially because I hope OG doesn't get too creative. That hasn't worked for them so far, but they take this series. Again, they haven't necessarily looked like the dominant team that a lot of us would have expected, but they're finding ways to win. And I'd venture to say, if you're a team in this bracket, this is not a team that you want to face, despite the fact that they've shown some signs of being shaky. All right, moving on to the NACL, the all salt matchup here. Guys, stop me if you've heard this one before. Thunderbirds gank Sumail's Storm Spirit twice in about 30 seconds early on in the mid lane. Misery's hanging out mid. They're picking on Sumail's Storm Spirit. Doesn't look like he's going to be in the game. Again, yeah, stop me if you've heard this one before. There's really nothing left to say about Sumail's Storm Spirit. You just can't take him out of the game. Arteezy, by the way, did have a very nice game on Spectre. I don't mean to imply that this was the Sumail show, but when you look historically at his stats on Storm Spirit, all right, number 1 in GPM, number 1 in XPM. He's actually not number 1 in KDA because he does tend to take a lot of these early deaths. Other teams really focus on him in the mid lane in this hero. But when you're number 1 in the farming categories, and the next best player on the hero would need to go 11-0 in his next 11 pro matches to match your current record, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, Sumail plays a pretty good Storm. Game 2, meanwhile, was the Universe show. So there was a record from a while back that I thought was really cool. There was a game, Universe for a very long time held the perfect duel record on Legion Commander. There was a game a couple years back where he cast duel 12 times in a match and he won all 12. And that was the largest number of perfect duel victories that I was able to find. Yeah, in this game, he didn't need 12. He got duel online. He hit his level 6 at about 8.5 minute mark. He used duel for the first time at 9 minutes. From 9.5 minutes to 16 minutes, he won 5 duels in 5 major EG engagements. All of these have 3 or more heroes involved on the EG side. I mean, they just got duel on their Legion commander and they went. Sumail was having a pretty good game on his Queen of Pain. They had plenty of damage. They just absolutely took it to Thunderbirds. And this was a bit of a reversal. I emphasized in my preview of this series, EG, as they have been historically, is a team that you expect to be all about farming efficiency, and they definitely had played that way in the tournament. I said coming into the series, I thought Thunderbirds needed to surprise EG a little bit in the draft. You need to be aggressive. That's the thing, though. EG knows that you feel that pressure as the opponent. When they're playing well, they're going to use the map incredibly efficiently. They're able to put a huge amount of passive macro pressure on the opponent. The opponent knows that they have to make plays, and that makes it that much more effective when they do decide to go super aggressive like this. These aren't Thunderbirds taking bad fights and trying to initiate into EG. EG were the aggressors in this game from the time that Universe got that duel up, and it caught Thunderbirds a bit off balance in this one. The game really spiraled out of control behind Sahil's excellent Legion Commander play, and the series was really, this was, you know, VP did have a fairly lopsided victory, but this series almost as lopsided. It was a little bit of a disappointment. I still do think Thunderbirds are an excellent, excellent team threat going into TI, but EG were by far the better team today. And the nightcap. Guys, most of you probably don't know SG Esports. I didn't know them that much coming in, but I want to introduce you to my friend Tavo. And what Tavo likes to do, hold on, let me fix this here. Sorry about that. I got to fix my slide. All right, here we go. Pay no attention to that, okay? What Tavo likes to do, he likes long walks on the beach. Chocolate, Tavo mostly likes winning team fights. This was a pretty even game. I'm sorry, this is game 2. Secret had won game 1 in a laugher. Game 2 was not that even, but I just wanted to show you, starting at 30 minutes, there's a 3-hero vacuum wall. 32 minutes, there's another 3-hero vac wall. 37 minutes, are we seeing a pattern here? 40 minutes, yeah, that's 4 consecutive 3-hero vac walls, all in great positions, all on at least one secret core in particular, focusing on that Shadow Fiend a lot of the time, getting that high damage SF illusion out. He was able to get that even in spite of the BKB, and man, oh man, I did a ton of damage in that fight. Going into game 2 is dead even going into the 40-minute mark. Even a little bit of advantage for Secret. Looked like this was going in the late game. Looked like it was going to be a nail biter. Tavo hits an absolutely gigantic 5-hero epicenter. It is technically a 5-hero epicenter. Kezu here doesn't take damage, but he does get slowed by one of the pulses. So this is technically affecting all 5 secret heroes. Just an absolutely tremendous play. After this series, I asked people on Twitter what they thought were comparable upsets. And of course, a lot of people said, you know, what are you talking about? You go back to TNC at TI last year, TNC over OG. That's a much bigger upset than this. I actually disagree with that, okay? When you talk about that particular series, you talk about the fact that TNC came in with 2 SEA teams already having finished top 6 in the 2 majors before that, okay? SEA was a region on the rise. We maybe didn't expect much from that particular TNC roster, but we know those teams are pretty good. This is a huge, huge thing for South American and Brazilian, in particular Dota. Pain Gaming, a lot of these players have been active in that region, playing Dota for a very long time. They're certainly a huge part of the NA pub scene. These guys have been grinding. They put in a lot of hours. And to win this kind of a match on the big stage, absolutely amazing for South American Dota. A lot of people question giving the region its own qualifiers. Certainly, I watched some of the games in that region. Quality of Dota there in those qualifiers, not always the best, but they were able to take and bring it on the big stage today when it counted. Absolutely huge win. Secret, meanwhile, you do have some questions. I bought into the hype, guys. I had Secret in the grand finals in my bracket. They had a 20-game win streak, including the first game of this series. Came in executing extraordinarily well. I gave you that statistic. Puppy had been in on 90% of their kills. Really looked like they were going to win through superior coordination and execution. Hard to pinpoint what exactly went wrong. They looked like at times they were playing a little bit of a 4 protect 1 around mid 1. Not necessarily when Secret struggles, I think it's because they don't necessarily They don't necessarily get Kezu going. They either don't devote a lot of resources to his lane in the early game or don't let him catch up. He's a guy that is capable of making extraordinary plays at the offlane position, but he's not yet, at this point in his career, he's not yet an autonomous player like Universe. You can't necessarily just put him in a lane and sack him and say, okay, go show up at 30 minutes with all your items that you need to initiate and dominate in these team fights. Still does need a little bit of support to get online, and I think that they kind of went away from getting him going in this series. That really, to me, was a big hole in their game, and that's not blaming him personally. That's something that I think they do need to address as a team. So first round is done. We're going to go into the quarterfinals tomorrow. Going to have 4 amazing best-of-3 series for you. This has been an incredible tournament so far. I probably shouldn't say this since I'm watching it from home, but I've had about as much fun watching this major as I have any other, except for the Manila Major. Nothing will ever top that. But these games have been a lot of fun. A lot of people talking about the single elimination format. Guys, let's just talk about the fact that there have been 4 days of really fun Dota played at this event. We've got 2 more to go. All the broadcasters in the panel done an excellent job. This is Nahaz. I'll try to have a couple more of these videos for you in the coming days, recapping some of the action here at the Major, talking about the team's outlooks going forward as they do exit the main stage. It's been a lot of fun watching these games, making these videos for you guys. Hope you'll join me again next time.